Do you believe that clowns are simply carnival entertainers? Painted faces meant for birthday parties and circuses? What if I told you that beneath the grease paint and exaggerated smiles lies something far more sinister? A truth so disturbing that it's been systematically erased from public record? Tonight, I reveal the untold story behind one of history's most disturbing figures, the entity known as Art the Clown. The black and white makeup, the silent, twisted grin, the unblinking stare that seems to follow you even through photographs. You might think he's just a character from a horror film. That's what they want you to believe. The reality is much darker. The first documented appearance of the entity now known as Art dates back to 1898 in the small mining town of Milbrook, Pennsylvania. Local newspaper archives, most of which were mysteriously destroyed in a fire in 1943, contained sparse references to a traveling carnival that arrived without announcement one autumn evening. The Midnight Circus, as it was called, set up on the outskirts of town and performed for only 3 nights. According to the surviving accounts from town historian Edgar Whitman, the carnival featured standard attractions with one notable exception: a silent clown who performed without announcement, appearing between scheduled acts. No one recalled him being listed on any programs or advertisements. He simply appeared. The clown wore black and white makeup exclusively, wrote Whitman in his personal journal, discovered in his attic in 1976. He performed no tricks, spoke no words. He simply stared at audience members, his head tilting at impossible angles. Children were terrified. Adults felt unease they couldn't explain, yet no one left their seats. 3 children disappeared during the carnival's brief stay. The official explanation was a mine collapse that claimed several lives that same week. But Whitman's journal tells a different story. They found small handprints in white powder on the children's bedroom windows. Inside, black smudges on the floors led to empty beds. Nothing else. The carnival disappeared on the 4th morning. No tracks leading away from town were ever found. The Milbrook Incident might have remained an isolated curiosity if not for what happened 28 years later in Ashford, Connecticut. In 1926, a local theater hosted a charity event featuring various performers. Photographs from the event preserved in the Connecticut Historical Society archives until they were removed in 1972 showed performers, audience members, and, in the background of 3 separate images, a figure that wasn't supposed to be there. The theater manager, Harold Pierce, filed a police report the following day. During review of event photographs, we identified an individual in black and white clown makeup who was not part of our scheduled entertainment. This person appears in different locations in multiple photographs taken seconds apart, physically impossible movements. No staff members recall seeing this individual during the event. The report was filed and forgotten. 2 weeks later, 3 theater employees who had worked that night disappeared without trace. Their cases remain unsolved. The pattern continued. Chicago, 1944. A children's hospital charity function. A black and white clown photographed beside sick children, a clown no staff member had invited. 7 children reported the same dream the night after his visit, a silent clown standing at the foot of their beds, head tilted at an unnatural angle, grinning. By morning, 3 of those children had died unexpectedly. Cause of death, heart failure. The hospital's records department suffered a pipe burst that destroyed all documentation from that week. The surviving photographs show a clown with distinctive black and white makeup, silent, staring directly at the camera. The expression, that terrible grin, identical to the entity seen in Milbrook nearly 50 years earlier. Time and again, the pattern repeats throughout the decades. A silent clown appears, people vanish, records disappear, always the same description, black and white makeup, never speaking. That unnerving, unblinking stare. And always the aftermath, missing persons, unexplained deaths, destroyed evidence. In 1967, folklorist Daniel Prescott began collecting these accounts, noticing the pattern that authorities seemed determined to ignore. His research spanned 3 years and hundreds of incidents across North America. The similarities were unmistakable. The entity appeared at gatherings, always unannounced, always uninvited. Photographs would later reveal his presence even when no witnesses recalled seeing him during the event itself. Disappearances followed. Records vanished. Prescott presented his findings to the American Folklore Society in 1970. 3 days later, his home burned to the ground with all his research inside. Prescott himself disappeared. The official explanation: he died in the fire. Yet, no remains were ever found. The few colleagues who had reviewed his work suddenly denied any knowledge of it. His name was removed from university records. It was as though Daniel Prescott had never existed. One piece of Prescott's research survived, a single page mailed to his sister the day before his disappearance. On it, a handwritten note. "They don't want this known. The entity feeds on attention, yet uses entertainment as camouflage. It's been here longer than we know. It watches from behind the makeup. It waits. If you're reading this, I've become part of the pattern." The entity remained active through the 1970s and 80s, appearing at increasingly public venues. A summer camp in Oregon, 1973. A mall opening in Texas, 1981. A televised charity event in New York, 1986. Each appearance followed by disappearances, each investigation abruptly closed without explanation, each record subsequently altered or destroyed. The pattern evolved in the 1990s. The entity began appearing in more permanent forms: background figures in photographs and films, carnival artwork, television broadcasts, always the same distinctive black and white appearance, always that terrible silent grin. Those who noticed and investigated found themselves becoming part of the pattern, vanishing without explanation. In 1998, exactly 1 century after the Milbrook Incident, independent filmmaker Marcus Reinhardt began production on a documentary exploring the legend of what he called the Eternal Clown. His research uncovered over 400 incidents matching the pattern across 12 countries. Reinhardt conducted interviews with families of the disappeared, former law enforcement officials who had investigated cases, and folklore experts familiar with the pattern. 3 weeks before completion, all footage disappeared from Reinhardt's editing bay. His notes vanished. Interview subjects claimed no knowledge of ever speaking with him. Reinhardt himself was found in his apartment, sitting before a blank television. He didn't respond to questions. He simply smiled silently, head tilted at an impossible angle, eyes unblinking. He was committed to a psychiatric facility where he remained for 6 months before disappearing from his locked room overnight. On the wall of his room, written in what tests later confirmed was grease paint: "The show must go on." The new millennium brought a disturbing evolution. The entity began appearing in mainstream entertainment. Horror films featuring clown antagonists proliferated. What most viewers assumed was fictional entertainment contained something else, something watching from behind the mask of fiction. In 2007, film archivist Eliza Chen noticed something disturbing while digitizing old carnival footage from the 1930s through 1960s. In the background of unrelated films spanning decades, the same clown figure appeared. Identical makeup, identical expression, identical stance. Physically impossible. Chen published her findings online. The website was removed within hours. Chen's university position was terminated the following day. Her research disappeared from university servers. 3 days later, Chen herself disappeared. Her apartment was found empty except for a single carnival poster on the wall, a black and white clown with that familiar terrible grin, the ink still wet to the touch. In 2013, the pattern accelerated. A horror film featured a character named Art the Clown, black and white makeup, silent, with that same distinctive grin. The actor who portrayed the character, when interviewed about his preparation for the role, gave contradictory accounts. In some interviews, he claimed to have created the character himself. In others, he described dreams where he was visited by the character. In his final interview, never broadcast but leaked online briefly before being scrubbed from the internet, he said simply, "I didn't create Art. Art was already there, waiting, watching. I just let him in." The actor disappeared from public life shortly after. His social media accounts were deleted. His agent claimed he had retired from acting to pursue private interests. No confirmed sightings of him have been reported since 2014. As the character of Art the Clown entered public consciousness through horror films, Incidents matching the historical pattern increased exponentially. Sightings of an identical clown, not an actor, not a promotional stunt, began appearing in locations connected to the films, outside theaters, in the homes of viewers, standing in the background during interviews about the films. Police departments across North America reported a surge in missing persons cases following the release of these films. The cases shared a disturbing detail not released to the public. Small handprints in white powder on windows, black smudges leading to empty beds, the exact pattern documented in Milbrook in 1898. Former Detective James Harmon, who investigated 12 such disappearances before his abrupt retirement in 2017, provided a sealed statement to a trusted colleague with instructions to release it if he himself disappeared. That statement, briefly available online before being systematically removed from every platform, contained this warning. What we're dealing with isn't human. It never was. It uses the appearance of a clown because that allows it to exist in plain sight, feared yet dismissed as entertainment. It feeds on attention while hiding behind fiction. The more we watch, the stronger it becomes. The more we dismiss it as fiction, the more freely it operates in reality. The entity has been documented for over a century, but I believe it's far older. Cave paintings dating back thousands of years show similar figures, white faces, black eyes, exaggerated smiles, always associated with disappearances, always watching. Harmon disappeared 3 weeks after writing that statement. His home was found empty except for a single item, a child's drawing of a black and white clown standing beside stick figures of a family. The drawing wasn't there when police first searched the home. It appeared during the investigation. The ink was still wet. Film critics and academics who have written analyses of the Art the Clown character have reported disturbing experiences, finding their research altered overnight, waking to discover their notes replaced with pages of the same phrase written over and over. The show must go on. Several have withdrawn their work, citing personal reasons. Others have disappeared entirely. In 2020, film historian Rebecca Torres published an article noting the similarities between the fictional Art the Clown and historical accounts of the entity dating back to the 19th century. She suggested the character wasn't created, but channeled from something that already existed. The article was retracted within days. Torres issued a public apology citing factual inaccuracies. 3 months later, her family reported her missing. Police found her apartment empty except for hundreds of carnival posters covering every surface, all showing the same black and white clown, all printed with the same date, the exact day she disappeared. The pattern continues to this day. The entity now moves freely between what we perceive as fiction and reality. It appears in films, photographs, artwork, and then steps out of them into the physical world. Those who notice the pattern, who speak about it publicly, become part of it. They vanish, their records vanish, their words vanish, until nothing remains but silence and that terrible, watching grin. The most disturbing evolution came in 2023. Viewers of the films featuring Art the Clown began reporting unusual experiences, finding white handprints on their windows after watching, glimpsing a black and white figure in reflective surfaces, waking to the sound of silent footsteps. Children drawing pictures of a clown they claimed visits at night. The entity had found a new method of manifestation through the very entertainment created to fictionalize it. Paranormal researcher Amelia Weiss documented 27 such cases before her research server was destroyed in what authorities called a targeted digital attack. Backup drives were physically destroyed. Cloud storage was corrupted. Weiss herself posted one final message to colleagues before her accounts were deleted. It doesn't want to be known, yet needs to be seen. Contradiction is its nature. Fiction is its cover. Attention is its food. It's getting closer. If you're reading this, please stop. The message ended mid-word. Weiss has not been seen since. What we're witnessing isn't fictional. The entity using the form we now call Art the Clown has existed for generations, perhaps centuries. It moves between what we label reality and fiction, using our disbelief as camouflage. It appears in entertainment because that's where we've been trained to safely contain our fears. We watch. We feel fear in controlled doses. We tell ourselves, it's just a movie. Meanwhile, it watches back. It feeds. It grows stronger. The pattern is accelerating. Sightings increase yearly. Disappearances multiply. Those who investigate vanish. Those who speak fall silent. Those who watch become the watched. You might wonder why this information isn't more widely known, why mainstream media doesn't report on the pattern, why authorities don't investigate the connections. Consider this. Every person who has documented the pattern has disappeared. Every record has been altered or destroyed. Every investigation has been terminated. The silence isn't coincidence. It's design. The entity doesn't want to be fully known, not yet. It exists in the periphery, in glimpses, in the corner of your eye. In the background of photographs, you don't examine closely. In reflections, you dismiss as tricks of light. In dreams, you forget upon waking. It hides behind fiction while reaching through it. But now you know. You've heard the pattern. You've seen the connections. You're aware of what watches from behind the painted smile. And it's aware of you. This may be the last time this information is shared. Like others before me, I've documented the pattern. I've spoken the warning. I've followed the trail of disappearances, altered records, and silenced witnesses back through decades. I've seen how the entity moves between entertainment and reality, using our attention as a doorway. Already I've noticed signs. White powder on my window this morning, black smudges leading from my door, my research files rearranged overnight, electronic documents altered when no one was present, the feeling of being watched even in empty rooms. I share this now because the pattern must be broken. The entity feeds on attention, yet requires silence about its true nature. It needs to be seen but not known. By sharing this history, this warning, perhaps the cycle can be disrupted. Perhaps you can protect yourself by simply being aware. But be warned. Now that you've heard this, you've become part of the pattern. You've given it your attention. You've looked into its history. And it looks back. It always looks back. Tonight, check your windows for white handprints. Listen for silent footsteps. Look for black smudges on your floor. And most importantly, avoid reflective surfaces, mirrors, screens, windows, places where you might glimpse a black and white face watching you with that terrible silent grin. If you've watched until the end, you're already involved. The entity knows you now. It sees you through the screen you're watching. It waits on the other side of your attention. Type, "I see you too" in the comments if you've made it this far. Not as engagement, but as protection. Acknowledge that you see it, and perhaps it will move on to those who remain unaware. Remember, it was never just a character in a horror film. Art the Clown has always been there, watching, waiting, grinning. And now, because you know, he's watching you. The show must go on, and you're now part of the performance. Sleep well tonight. And whatever you do, if you hear silent footsteps outside your door, if you see white powder on your windowsill, if you glimpse a black and white face in your mirror, don't smile back. He's already smiling enough for both of you.